What up, what up? We are here back with another Browns breakdown episode. We just finished up week 6. The Browns, unfortunately, are down to 2-6. Pardon me, 2-4. They looked like awesome at the beginning of the game. Fizzled out, looked like shit towards the end of the game. A lot of mistakes. They probably should have beaten the Seahawks, but didn't. Go into the bye week with the Patriots on the other side of it. A lot of question marks, a lot of things to improve, a lot of growth to be had if they want to make any push to the playoffs. Jeff, what says you on quick reaction, I guess, to what happened last Sunday? I think that's pretty much my first question that I always pitch to you. Your initial reaction, let's do that again. Your initial reaction to Browns Seahawks this past Sunday, the old loss for our hometown Cleveland Browns.
So, like you said, starting out, you felt really fucking good.
3 tuds on 3 drives.
God damn.
When was the last time the Browns scored 3 times in the first 3 drives? 3 touchdowns in the first 3 drives.
It really sucks with the ending after seeing in this game there were glimpses of brilliance with every facet of the game, particularly on the offense. I mean, I think Baker made a lot of good throws.
He really did.
Our running game is a strength this year. Like, the offensive line takes some heat, but the running game takes the offensive line and the running back. They go hand in hand, and we have a stud running back, and our offensive line is getting it done in run blocking.
They look pretty good in pass blocking this past week too.
We
ripped them pretty good, but they look much improved. They played pretty well.
They were giving Baker a lot of time. There are just so many glimpses of brilliance, like I said, especially from offense, which is what everybody has been wanting to see. But the mistakes this team makes are killers, man. Our fucking receivers literally tossing the ball to the other team has got to stop. I mean, Baker leads the league in interceptions thrown that shouldn't, I'm wording it differently, that shouldn't have been intercepted. Essentially, they hit the receiver in the hands and they were tipped and they were intercepted. Essentially,
they talked about interceptable passes.
Yeah, I was going to say, and essentially, he has thrown interceptions that were not rated as interceptable. So basically, he's making a good throw, good decision, good throw, and it's still getting picked off. So if you adjusted his interceptions, I think the margin was like 5. They'd be down 5 technically, but some of those were thrown into double coverage too. I mean, all in all, our receivers need to catch the fucking ball when he's hitting them on the hands. I couldn't believe the 49ers game with Callaway on the fucking goal line. Are you kidding me? I mean, he was on the fucking ground and literally launched the ball up from the ground and it got picked off. It's crazy. It happened again this game, hitting the hands of the receivers and the defenders right there to make a play. So
yeah, and I love how people come out. Baker didn't hit him in stride. He threw a little bit behind him. Oh, it wasn't the greatest pass. He could have been. Fuck that, dude. If you expect as a wide receiver to get the ball in the breadbasket every single throw of your career, you might as well just retire because it's not going to happen. Baker is putting in windows that are catchable passes, and they need to be fucking caught. I don't give a fuck if you're a running back lining up wide. You're an NFL fucking player. Catch the fucking ball when it's hitting you in the hands at your hip. I don't give a fuck. But like you mentioned,
you got to fight for the ball. I mean, goddamn. At least knock the ball down if you're not going to fucking
Which
catch
play
it
are you
if
talking
it's
about?
Contested. Juice.
The juiced one in the end zone, that was... I don't really know that he could have really done much else to that. I mean, it was super behind him. He got one hand on it. It almost would have been better if he just let it fucking fly through. But he did get one hand on it, and it just tipped the wrong way. I'm more concerned about the drops, and particularly the drops that are getting flipped up into the air, into the defender's hands. Most particularly, final drive of the game, when you're trying to go down and drive. And like I said, I don't care if it's a running back. I don't care who the fuck it is. You're on an NFL roster. You better catch that fucking pass. Yes, it was a little bit behind him, but you can't expect anything else. You're getting a slant route on a quick 3-step. What do you think's going to happen? The fucking offensive lineman's going to be in your face, getting pushed back by the D lineman. You don't have all the space. It's not going to be perfect passes. you're catching a pass that's 15 yards downfield. Catch the goddamn ball.
Yeah, you got to catch it.
Piggybacking off what you mentioned, I think the biggest key was just the mistakes made in the second half. When they showed a stat early on the penalty area of the game, the Browns were dominating in penalties versus penalty yards. Like, they had much fewer penalties, much fewer penalty yards, and things of that nature. And it all kind of mounted towards the second half when they started getting penalties that cost them. Some of them were bullshit, but some of them weren't. And they basically shot themselves in the foot in a couple of times. They didn't make plays that they should have. They didn't get 1 yard when they should have. They dropped passes and flipped it into the air for interceptions when they shouldn't have. There was just mounting mistakes where they looked great in the first half. Like we mentioned, 3 touchdowns on 3 drives. That's incredible. And then kind of things all went south. I don't really know where to kind of put the blame. There's a lot to go around. I know we've trashed the offensive line week after week, but they played pretty fucking good this week. Gave up 0 sacks. Chubb did normal Chubb things. I think, like you mentioned, their run blocking has been pretty stout all season. It's been the pass blocking that's been a real question mark. They played pretty good. They gave Baker time. Like I said, they didn't give him any sacks. I don't really see any issue with the offensive line this week for pretty much the first real time I can say that all season. But there was definitely mounting mistakes. We're going to get into where that kind of goes into so much as, how much blame can that be on Freddie? How much blame can that be on Baker? Where the mistakes are. But I like what I saw in the first half. I'm interested to see what happens in the second half, and I'm kind of going to get into some of my points of what I want to see from Baker and Freddie going into the second half. But before we kind of jump into some of those things, what do you make of, let's just start with, what do you make of the Freddie Kitchens situation? We're seeing things on Twitter from guys like John Clayton. I'm not really sure where he's employed nowadays, whether it's ESPN yet or still or not, but a guy who everybody kind of knows, recognizes, has some clout and some reputation, talking about he heard, Freddie Kitchens was on the hot seat after last week. Personally, I don't see any merit to any of those things he said. I kind of find it bullshit. I really don't think that, there was any consideration or realistic plausibility of Freddie ever getting fired after last week. But what are your thoughts on Freddie so far? And, obviously his play calling hasn't been spectacular, but what's your opinion so far overall on Freddie Kitchens and where things stand going into the bye week from the Freddie Kitchens standpoint?
I think Freddie is still finding his balance between his duties as head coach and keeping play calling responsibilities. As head coach, I mean, you're overseeing all the position coaches and coordinators. He now has a guy like Todd Monken working for him. Okay. He's not used to that. Okay. He was a running back coach before he got promoted to offensive coordinator last year when Hugh Jackson got fired. So I don't think he's used to being, the head guy. Fall camp is one thing. Mid-season and, managing your coaching staff and players is totally different. So I think there's a balancing act. He's a rookie head coach. You also have Baker only in his second year. I mean, he didn't play a full season last year. And your roster is pretty much the youngest in the league. It's not going to be easy. So Freddie got hired because of his creativity and magic that happened on offense last year when Baker took over. And that's really what we need from him. Okay. That's where Freddie's value is highest, is that type of offense and chemistry with Baker we saw in Baker's rookie season. The silver lining in all this is with this rookie head coach and second year quarterback now getting, to a full 16 games started, this was the gauntlet. This was the gauntlet of our schedule. I know we still have the Patriots, which is, luckily we have a bye week at least to hopefully figure out some issues. But after the Patriots, the schedule is so manageable. I know week to week in the NFL, it is very difficult, but you know what? It's like that for every team. You got to get through it if you want to be serious. So the schedule gets easier. And look, Baker faced a lot of adversity last season. First head coach gets fired. He barely got any time, in preseason with the ones. Barely got any time in actual games early on. Comes in, totally new offensive coordinator. Freddie was kind of thrown to the wolves too, and they both handled adversity beautifully and got through it and started winning some fucking games. So that's the silver lining, in my opinion, is the schedule aspect and the fact that these two have worked together in the past under a little bit of fire. They were both thrown to the wolves a little bit in a sense, and they're kind of there now. Their backs are up against the wall. They haven't both been doing their jobs to the fullest of their capabilities, in my opinion. Way more hopeful in Baker than Freddie at this point, but calling for Freddie to get fired mid-season, especially now, is just kind of asinine. Give the man a full season. Let's see what the fuck can happen. I heard someone on the radio saying that the issue on offense is we have too many weapons at receiver to spread the ball around, and that's being stressed and blah, blah, blah. Fuck that. That's the stupidest shit I've ever heard.
That's a good
one. We have too much talent. We don't know how to spread the ball around. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard.
That is pretty bad.
Just stop. So that's my take on Freddie. I think it can get better. You might not win against the Patriots. That puts you at 2-5. You're going to have to go 7-2 in the back stretch to make the playoffs. And that would put the record right where I thought it would be at the end. Right. And here's another silver lining. I'm not for moral victories, but I'm going to say this one. You played tough against the Rams and the Seahawks, and you were right there to win it despite all the issues we've had. Okay? So if they can just clean it up marginally, we can win a lot of games with this talent.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for too. Like we talk about the Freddie thing and him being on the hot seat, quote unquote, and where's really the source coming from that respect? I don't really give really much any merit to that. There's no reason, in my opinion, he would ever got hired by John Dorsey if there was contemplation of if they go 2-5, we're firing him. Get the fuck out of here. There's no shot. What I look to see from Freddie, in another respect, like you kind of just mentioned, a first-year head coach. Call him whatever you want. He's a first-year head coach. And what I look to see from him is improvement from game to game, adjustments from game to game. Same thing from Baker. You know what I'm saying? There's instances where, last week he balled the fuck out and dominated as a rookie in that respect. Set records, rookie touchdown record, everything like that. Obviously, we mentioned in the last podcast, defenses adjust. Defensive coordinators and defensive personnel are the best in the world at figuring out how to stop something that is working. Baker Mayfield balled the fuck out last year. There's tape now that says, and I was kind of off that kind of, perspective of last year. Everyone kind of mentioned like, oh, don't worry, there's going to be tape out. Baker Mayfield, he might slow down a little bit. And I said, fuck you, that's not going to happen. I was wrong. It has happened. And I think a lot of the reason why Baker has struggled is because of those adjustments that defenses have made. They've been throwing different looks at him. They've been throwing different reads in different ways that defenses or defensive, fronts evolve through pre-snap to post-snap to through the play. They're evolving differently than they did last year, and they're making it tough on Baker, and that's acceptable. I mean, he's like you mentioned, he's a second-year guy who didn't even play a full season last year. That's expected. But what is expected from me as a fan is adjustments. And I think it's really difficult to adjust on the fly week to week. You're going to go from one opponent to another. They have different schemes. They have different things they do. They have different personnel. So trying to adjust on the fly of, okay, I haven't been doing this particular thing good last week and up to this week. Let me change that all of a sudden and, go a full 180 switch and start doing that well. Also while improving every other aspect of what I'm doing also. So the bye week, I think, comes in a perfect situation and perfect spot where they can kind of take their breath, look at things more, surgically and think, okay, let's really dissect what's going on here. Why am I not picking this read up? why is this look giving me troubles on trying to figure out what the coverage is or where my first read or second read should be or where I should maybe make an audible and shift a play or make a check where it's going to make it more advantageous for myself and my receivers and my offensive line and the like. So my thing in looking for what I want to see out of Baker and Freddie is improvements and adjustments going forward, which I think we've already seen. You know, the Seahawks was a game that I wouldn't have been surprised if they got fucking bent over last week. And they came out hot and they looked fucking sweet. And they almost pulled that game out. It's unfortunate for one reason or another that they didn't win. I wish they would have. Obviously, wins are hard to come by. However, they made adjustments and they look pretty good. I want to see adjustments going into the following weeks that says, you know, we can, especially from Freddie, I want to see, okay, I know what I'm doing and I'm noticing why it's going wrong. Yes, everybody can see what's going wrong, but I can see why, and I can make the adjustment with this extra week to make some points of change for Baker and start implementing that going forward that builds towards the rest of the season. That a lot of these easy games, like I said, week to week, it's still an NFL team. You can lose any week. But if you can make the adjustments that we're almost there right now, if Freddie can figure him out and, you know, implement why he's the head coach and why he was hired, that's when I think we're going to see long-standing success, which is why the calls for Freddie to be fired are fucking nonsensical and stupid. So that's what I'm going to be looking for going ahead in these next weeks is, has Freddie and Baker kind of come together and pinpointed some adjustments that can really make the offense just turn that switch a little bit where they stop making the mistakes and they kind of bring everything together and have that full game like what we saw in the first quarter of last week, sustain that through the whole game and really build towards a successful rest of the season. That's kind of what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both agree that...
Rant over.
Yeah, right. I think we both agree that the Browns have more talent than our record shows this season so far. You know, we've played some tough games. We were right there to win the game against the Rams. Started off so hot against the Seahawks and things kind of, you know, went south quickly there right before half. I mean, you start with the 3 touchdowns on 3 drives, but then you go like interception, block, punt. That's not good.
That's rough.
That's rough. And we're such a young...
4 turnovers is not good.
No, I mean, and they're such a young team that when adversity hits, man, I think sometimes they don't know how to handle it and bounce back. And when you're playing a team like the Seahawks that has a veteran Super Bowl winning coach, veteran Super Bowl winning quarterback, which, by the way, Russell Wilson is a fucking beast.
Yes.
My God. He
might
can
be
put
the
the throws on the money, man.
I mean, I know he gets plenty of credit and everything like that, but he might be the most underrated quarterback in the league just because he's not mentioned in the status of, you know, the top 5 guys in the league. He is for sure one of those guys.
Their offense isn't flashy. You know what I mean? It's not like the Chiefs offense.
Never
or
has
anything
been
like that. It never has been. But
they have Marshawn Lynch, but hey, if only would have ran from the 1 yard line.
Right.
They'd have 2 soups instead of 1, but that's neither here nor there. Russell Wilson is he's one of the best in the league, but he's not regarded in a lot of people's eyes as one of those. He should be.
I forget which when it happened, but his touchdown pass, it was like a corner out to the end zone where he was under pressure and he lofted this ball, I mean, perfectly. Like the receiver didn't even break into his route yet, but he knew he was under pressure and he knew where he was going to break, and he delivered one of the most accurate passes I've ever seen, especially under pressure. It was pretty amazing. But, you know, when you give a team like that with a quarterback like that and a veteran head coach multiple chances, they're going to fucking win. I mean, our home record is a disaster this year, which is really disheartening. And, you know, I'm more the person to venture to be more negative than positive. But with the Browns, after seeing what we saw last year and knowing the talent we have on this team, I'm not ready to give up on my prediction of going 9-7. I think it's going to be really difficult. Don't get me wrong. It's fucking hard, especially now that you got to play the Patriots and you're 2-4 before you can go on that stretch. But I think they can win a lot of games still on the schedule. And if they don't, then things need to be changed this offseason. They're going to have to make decisions because it obviously won't be working if they can't at least get to 800 at the end of this season.
500 at the end of the season. You said 800. That's pretty funny. No, but
oh shit, I was thinking 8 and 8.
I mean, right. It's tough. I mean, realistically, I don't think really any of us really thought, okay, the Browns are going to win a Super Bowl. I mean, there's still a chance that they might. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibilities. But realistically, we're looking at kind of a 9-7, maybe 10-6 team if they kind of overachieve a little bit. And, if they're a little bit below that or a little bit above that, I don't think it's going to be too shocking. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to be, if they're on the blowout side, really that long-term detrimental. You mentioned making changes. I don't know if that's kind of an innuendo towards changing the head coach or what you're kind of thinking on that regard. But I guess it all kind of depends on how things shape up towards the end of the season and how it finishes more than how it started. Like I said, I want to see those adjustments. I want to see things build and grow as the season goes along, more so than I needed to see shit come out on fire and hot. People forget. I mean, we got a rookie head coach. That's just the nature of the NFL.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's got to finish strong. I mean, that's the context I'm looking for. If they end up, 7-9,
right? Finishing strong might mean
lower
9-7 because they have a trash schedule to end the season. So.
Yeah. But even if they're below the 9-7 threshold that I projected, there is context to it. If they finish the season very strong and there are vast improvements on offense, then yeah, I think, you have something going for you going into the next season. But if you're getting a 7-9 and you're scratching out victories and we're still an offense that is a turnover machine and there are still,
that's a big part of it.
A lot of issues, it's like, I don't know, man. That doesn't make me feel very confident going into the next season.
Yeah, that's kind of part of it too. Like you talk about turnover machine. If Baker doesn't throw 11 picks this season, let's say he's at 5 or 6 picks. How much better does this offense? I mean, it obviously kind of depends on where those picks are of the season if you eliminate some of them. But let's assume some of them are some of the critical ones. This whole season, even if they lose the same amount of games, is just in a different perspective, which, like I've said in the past, like it doesn't really fucking matter how you win or lose games. Wins to count as wins, losses count as losses. We went back, you were talking about winning ugly versus losing pretty versus the Rams, and I didn't really give a fuck about it. My point is, like, I don't care if they look good now. I want them to look good going into the rest of the season. I want Baker to start holding on to the ball. Not holding on to the ball, but stop throwing picks. Let's just say that. I want everything to kind of come together in a way that looks like a 4-quarter team, which we haven't seen even once or even a glimpse of this whole season. Even though our wins have kind of looked shitty. I guess the Ravens was kind of a more or less complete game, but not in all facets. It's hard to kind of project and where, looked ahead to what we want to see so far as their finishing record or things like that. I just want to see growth. And, there's discussions about Baker and his statistics and how he's looked so far, and his accuracy has been atrocious and his completion percentage has been trash. He almost looks like a different player than what he looked like last season. I'm not really entirely sure why. I know, some perspective and opinions on, like I said, in some of my tweets and my analysis of his reads, and he's not getting certain balls out that he should and not picking up certain, pre-snap reads and things like that. I'm still all the way in on Baker. I'm still completely confident that he is the guy that we thought he was going into the season. I still think he's that same guy and is going to produce the same level of, what we expected. Do you think that's like, what's your opinion on, because there's been things that we've heard in the media of Baker's overrated. Baker's not what we saw last year. It was a fluke kind of thing. What's your opinions on Baker and kind of what you've seen so far? Because he's looked bad.
Yeah.
He's thrown picks. He's missed a lot of open guys. He's made catches a lot more difficult than should have been. What's your thoughts on what you've seen from Baker this year and what your projections are through the future, I guess.
Yeah, it's so complex. Like this offense has issues in general. It can't just, the finger can't just be pointed at Baker. You know.
Yeah.
It
No,
needs to
I'm
be,
saying like.
no, I know. I'm
disregarding that.
right. No,
What are your
my
thoughts
point
on
was
Baker's
all these reactions. Oh, Baker
Yeah.
was, a one-hit wonder last year. It was a fluke. Blah blah blah. Like it's such an overreaction to say something like that because of what I just said. Like the blame shouldn't just be all on him. Yes, he has not looked the best this year. Well, neither has Freddie. Neither has other aspects of the offense. So I'm with you. I'm not going to lie. My confidence has been shaken maybe a little bit, slightly after what we've seen.
Mine is not at all.
But I'm still with Baker. I think he is fully capable of being the franchise quarterback and being the franchise quarterback of the Cleveland Browns franchise, who have been a freaking disaster. We needed, someone with his mentality coming in of, I don't give a fuck where I'm going. I'm going to come in. Yeah. I'm going to change the culture. I'm going to be a leader and I'm going to win. And he did that as a rookie.
And that same mentality of things go wrong, we expect that mentality to be able to stay focused and right the ship, which I think he will.
Yeah, no, I still have faith and confidence in Baker that he is the long-term answer. My comment was, look, he hasn't played that well. So yeah, I'm going to be real. My confidence has shaken up a little bit. But I'm still comfortable with Baker moving forward, and I think he can play a lot better. I think this is more an anomaly than the norm of what we've seen with Baker so far this year. So, things can change. It kind of like the Rams, like we talked about. Sean McVay has struggled like the past 3 weeks, maybe even 4. I mean, it's not like he was elite versus the Browns. Are people questioning, ooh, Sean McVay, one-hit wonder offensive mind. Now, all of a sudden, teams haven't figured out and he's trash. And it's not like that. And I think Baker can get it turned around here moving forward. So I'm more hopeful in Baker than I am in Freddie at this point. Freddie, I guess, has a lot more to prove to me as a head coach than Baker does as a quarterback thinking long-term.
Yeah, I guess just because there's a little bit more of a sample size of what we've seen out of Baker. Like, we can see Baker on the field make a throw. We can see him take a hit and deliver a ball downfield. We can't see Freddie under pressure call the best play and, the clock's running down and he calls it in just in time. And now,
yeah, I mean, game management, it's more so like Freddie the OC last year. Yeah.
But it's easy to see Baker has the physical talent and the capability because we saw him for the last 6 years on the football field do exactly that. We've seen him make throws. We've seen him be athletic and do things that impress. The only thing we can see Freddie do is stand on the sidelines in a hoodie. Like, it's a little bit more difficult. And we don't see some of the biggest part, aside from calling plays, is locker room management, full game management, full game development, and analysis and kind of game planning and those kind of things. Those are all kind of behind the scenes. We haven't seen it, develop into wins. So it's kind of more of a question mark of, can he do it as a head coach to develop into a winning team and a winning season? But I don't know. We have seen improvement. The offensive line has definitely improved. The play calling, I think, has been better. Even though, looking back, I trashed the play calling once, and then, I went on the podcast the next week and said, well, I watched the film and it wasn't as bad as it kind of initially
It's so
looked.
Up and down.
It's hard to,
you just can't point your
glimpse,
finger at
that's what I mean. Like, it's hard to, in a glimpse, kind of pinpoint the success or failures of a head coach when it's kind of more easy to see. I have full faith in Baker because I see him make the throws. I see his physical talent. I see his, leadership from what he's able to bring out of other guys. Like, it's easier because it's producing on the field, whereas he's more on the sidelines and more behind the scenes. But I still have all the faith in Freddie, personally. Maybe that's naivete and just optimism and being Browns fan bias. And I want to see the success, but I think he's going to be able to figure it out plenty. I don't know why. I just have like a sense and a feeling just from what I've seen. Like I said, I've seen improvement. I've seen things get better. I've seen games start well, and those adjustments that get made throughout the game are going to come. I think he's going to kind of develop his game strategy more than quarter strategy. I mean, we saw those three. We saw hot starts and then fizzling, and I think he's going to be able to get that kind of in check and develop more long term, and that's going to help develop Baker too. And like we kind of go back to the first question. Let's talk about Freddie not being the guy. I think is asinine, and
at this point, it's totally asinine. What are you going to do anyway? Well, what good is getting rid of him at this point?
All right, so let's say this.
That's silly.
Let's say this.
Silly.
Wins aside, obviously we want to. The answer to this question is 9-7 or 10-6, which is a little bit easier to answer. So win and record aside, let's ignore that for a second, which is kind of interesting and difficult because it's a bottom line business and you get wins or you get losses. But what do you want to see from this team? Whether it's Baker, whether it's Freddie, whether it's less penalties or whatever the case may be, wins aside, what do you want to see going after this bye week and into the rest of the season from this Browns team?
Cleaner football. Last week, like we have already hit on, you start off freaking hot. And then you looking in the box score, you put up 3 straight touchdowns. Then you go pick, block, punt. You cannot have these stretches in the NFL. I want to see cleaner football, especially on offense. I mean, we are a sloppy freaking team. Whether the interception is on Baker or the receiver not catching it and tipping it up to the DB, it's sloppy. No matter whose fault it is, you can't have it. So it's got to get cleaned up. I mean, you want to, get into the nitty-gritty details of play calling problems and, this and that. You take away simple stuff like that, like freaking receivers catching the ball, you're eliminating turnovers right there. And, you're possibly talking about 1 more win, maybe even 2 when you factor in the Rams. So, I just want to see the offense in rhythm. I want to see the offense glorify the run game. Look, our strength right now is the run game. There's nothing wrong with playing to the strength of your team. That's what good coaches do. That's what I want to see. You've got a beast in Nick Chubb. Your run blocking is better than your pass blocking. If your passing was more efficient, then use the pass to set up the run. Right now, your running is more efficient. Use the run to set up the pass. Use it to set up play action. You can do a lot off of when your running game is established. We've reached a point in football where, it used to be hell-bent on, run's got to set up the play action in the pass, blah, blah, blah. No, it's whatever you do best is what you execute more frequently to set up your other game. You're more efficient in the run game. Use that to your advantage somehow and get the passing game going off of that. Let Nick Chubb win you games. It doesn't have to all be on Baker's shoulders.
Yeah, it in a lot of respects, it is that easy. You think, it's not that easy. Just run the ball. Sometimes your best player should be getting fed the ball.
Dude, teams repeat plays in the same game all the time because they work.
Your best player is Nick Chubb. Feed him the fucking ball. But we talk about Freddie Kitchens, and when I look at what I want to see, and I even mentioned just improvements and kind of those things. But aside from the Freddie angle, when you look at what's going on, in my opinion, and part of this might be on Freddie because it might be, we talk about play calling and putting people in the best positions to succeed and maybe asking a little too much. My thought is, we talk about play calling. I don't really think Freddie's play calling has been all that bad. What I want to see going into the next couple weeks and after the bye week is a lot of what you pointed out, like with that, like the more clean football and less penalties and kind of things like that. But execution is what I want to see. Like there's a lot of plays that develop well, schemed well, things are open, guys are open, whether it's Baker misses him or guys drop passes or somebody on the edge of an offensive line misses a block, or there's a lot of things that seem to crumble, and a lot of reasons why, we talk about Baker Mayfield bailing out of the pocket, for instance. Is it because he's missing a read? Is it because, an offensive lineman is missing a block? Is it because a wide receiver fell over? Like there's it's all of the above in a lot of instances. And I think it all comes down to execution. When looking back, Freddie isn't doing that bad of a job of play calling. Like I said, in some instances, I think he might be overly optimistic of what this team is capable of, or putting people in positions of the margin of error is very slim and very small, where, okay, this might be the right play call, but everything has to come together in the right way for it to be a first down. Like, there's so many instances where I see, an NFL team, whether it's versus the Browns or otherwise, watching other games, where a guy's just wide the fuck open to get a first down on a 2nd and 6 or a 3rd and 4. There's a guy in the flats wide open, or the missed coverage guys. There's so many wide open receivers, and I find a lot of instances for the Browns, there's not a lot of open, just wide open, wide margin of errors. You want to misthrow that. Oh, well, he still has fucking plenty of time to turn around, catch it, and run for a first down. It's almost like I'm seeing things where everything has to be executed perfectly, and that's how we're going to succeed. Yes, he's kind of open, but it requires Baker to thread the fucking needle and get the first down. A lot of instances. So some of it might be on Freddie and his overly optimistic play calling, thinking he has Peyton Manning back there when really he has a second-year quarterback who hasn't even played a full season yet. But at the same time, what I want to see is execution, because there are plays that are being left out there. There are missed opportunities and missed assignments and a lot of things that are going wrong. And that's kind of what I want to see going into the rest of the season, is that execution perspective. And we haven't really even talked about, all of our conversation has really been on the offense and what we're missing offensively. The defense hasn't looked great in the last few weeks either, particularly this past week, particularly against the 49ers. They've got wrecked. I think it's finally showing some of those injuries are really catching up to us, particularly in the secondary. But I think we kind of got away with it. We were kind of overly optimistic of, all these guys, Mitchell and Carey kind of stepping in for Ward and Greedy being injured, and we were like, oh, well, hey, they're playing pretty fucking well. But I think it's kind of catching up to us a little bit. But defensively, I want to see that same level of execution. They haven't really been stopping the run very well. They've been missing a fuck ton of tackles.
The tackling is the biggest issue.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So they're just not executing. I think they're in good positions, a lot better than in past when we've seen safeties lining up 48 yards downfield. And that might be an understatement. It might be more like
straight pump block,
97 yards backfield. So I don't really have any qualms about what Steve Wilkes is doing. I think the defense has been put in good positions. I just don't think they're executing all that well, and they're not tackling. So defensively, I think it's a little bit simpler. It's some of those be in the right position and make the tackle kind of situations.
Yeah,
but offensively,
tackling,
execute.
You can either tackle or you can't
at
this level. So I don't think the tackling is going to get all that much better. But to be honest, I really don't have that many gripes about the defense. They have injuries. Mac Wilson is a rookie, and versus the 49ers, he was caught overcommitting on some of his reads and leaving a gap there in the running game. But now the defense is good enough to win games.
For sure.
I think the offense is what is holding the team back.
Definitely.
When you give the ball back to a team like the Seahawks with Russell Wilson that many times, I'm sorry, man, they're going to make you pay for it.
Yep.
And that puts a lot of stress on the defense to make plays. And I don't think the defense played shitty against the Seahawks per se. It's just, look, it's in today's NFL, when you play a team with a good quarterback, quality coaching, pieces around that quarterback, they're going to make plays. They're going to score. And that's why on offense, you have got to take care of the ball. And so far this year, our offense can't take care of the football.
No. And like I said, it's about executing, and I think that's really what I'm going to be looking forward to. And like I said, especially after this bye week. And I know it's a little bit tough because they're playing what might be the best defense in the league, and the team that's coming up the Super Bowl. And still got Tom Brady, still got Belichick.
Belichick
Patriots
feasts on rookie head coaches, by the way.
The Patriots, I don't really have high expectations on winning, and it's going to be hard to kind of gauge the level of preparation and bounce back kind of situation going on post bye week because they're playing the Patriots. But when we look ahead beyond that, and I do expect, don't get me wrong, I do expect to see a little bit of improvement and some things that go right against the Patriots. If they fall flat on their face like they did against the 49ers, I'm going to be a little bit upset. But post-bye week, I think they should be able to address some of the issues that they've seen and the poor execution and find ways to get better situation, or better circumstances for guys to make plays and execute. And, some of that's on Freddie, like I said, but a lot of it is also on the playmakers and the guys on the field. And, that pressure is on Baker, man. I want to see a lot more out of Baker. And that's kind of where I think it's a good spot to kind of leave off on this Browns breakdown. If you got kind of anything else to add as we head into this bye week, I do anticipate still kicking off another Browns episode next week, but kind of see how that shapes up. But hopefully we'll have a little bit of something to talk about, maybe with this trade deadline. Maybe we have some trades and some Browns movement. But what is your final closing comments on this Browns week? Then our 2-4 ending of week 6 Browns breakdown episode.
I talked previously in our podcast, basically saying, this year you got to stay within that one game of 500. Otherwise, you're going to make it really difficult on yourselves to make a playoff push. And here we are at 2-4. You dropped 2 straight going into the bye. Now you get to play the Patriots. It's put up or shut up time for this team if they want to contend. And I'm not saying the Patriots is a must-win game or anything, but man, 2-5 is going to be really difficult to spin into a playoff push. Like I said, silver lining is the schedule in the back end is a lot more manageable. Freddie Kitchens and Baker were they were thrown to the wolves last year and they responded with wins. So it's time to see that response again this year after we've faced adversity before the bye week.
Yeah. I mean, like you talk about schedule, everything kind of shapes up to kind of get on a groove, get shit figured out, and then just go on a little bit of a run. It's almost set up perfectly of get your growing pains out of the way early, and then you can just fucking roll. If you execute, if you get things dialed in, and I guess we'll kind of see, but I do think this bye week comes at the perfect time to kind of hit the reset button, break things down from a fundamental standpoint of the things you need to correct. And I have high hopes. Like I don't have high hopes particularly for this Patriots game. They're best team in the league. But I have high hopes and expectations for how they respond to the rest of the season. And that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. And I'm excited. That is our Browns breakdown following week 6. Looking to keep these going week to week. It's been fun breaking down the Browns. Hopefully we have more wins to discuss and more positive things to look into and break down. But from here on October 16th, I'm Ryan Denchef here with Jeff Mapis. Peace.